know how back in the early days when children's TV shows weren't afraid to have dark moments in there, like say a dark storyline or a really dark moment in a mostly light-hearted episode? Well, the classic Thomas the Tank Engine series had that too. Even a children's show like Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends can have its dark moments here and there. Whether it be dark storylines, dark few moments in mostly light-hearted episodes, the list goes on. And I'm here to talk about some of them today. I mean, it can be easy to talk about pretty much every single episode from Series 5, since they push the boundaries of the past series, and they have a lot more threatening things for the engines to deal with. They've even tackled the theory on whether or not ghosts exist with their spooky episodes like Ghost Train, Duncan Gets Spooked, Haunted Henry, and many others. And as I said, many of the episodes from Series 5 with their natural disasters can be very dark at times, since it's life-threatening situations that people would often deal with in real life. And just to show these kind of things in a children's show like Thomas the Tank Engine was pretty risky at the time, but it was a risk that really paid off in my opinion. And as I mentioned when talking about Smudger in the previous Thomascember, turning him into a generator and just leaving him behind the shed is quite dark when you look back at it. Even the image of Duke being left all alone in the shed as soil buries his entire shed throughout the years is really dark too. It just shows how edgy Thomas the Tank Engine could be in its starter days. But the biggest dark theme in Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends during the classic series was the theme about scrap. The whole theme of scrap in Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends was originally brought up in the Series 2 episode Safe from Scrap, when Trevor the traction engine was set to be broken up because he was old-fashioned, until Edward saved him thanks to the vicar. But as it went into its third season, the whole theme of scrap became a much bigger thing for the engines, becoming something that would make the engines shiver with fear. Being scrapped, as well as the mentioning of a scrapyard, is like a death sentence for steam engines on Sodor. Even Oliver and Stepney, two of the most popular characters in the Railway series as well as the TV series, were on the scrap line until they were saved. Even old Slow Coach was in danger of being broken up in a scrapyard until Thomas and Percy saved her. It just shows that scrap not only affects steam engines, but other vehicles as well. There had even been some sets like the other railway and the scrapyards which would contain scrapped engines all over the place. I mean, when you look at the scrapyards in the classic series, it just looks like a steam engine's graveyard from their point of view. A place where all steam engines dread to go to, and even just the mentioning of it sends shivers down their funnels. There's even been various diesel engines that wanted to see steam engines scrapped throughout the TV series, like Devious Diesel, the Diesel from Bowled Out, Arian Burt, back when they were first introduced in Series 5, before they became a bunch of goofy villains in Series 6. And of course Diesel 10. Diesel 10 was a character that wanted to dominate the entire railway and make steam engines nothing but useless scrap. Now that's really dark for a children's movie as well as a children's show in my opinion. Before Heads Entertainment shattered all away in Colonial Engines and then sort of brought it back in Day of the Diesels. Even the Series 8 episode Thomas to the Rescue wasn't afraid to show a few scrapped engines in a dream sequence. That just shows how dark the show could be even when it went downhill. Now the whole fear of scrapyards and being scrapped from a steam engine came from Robert Aldry's books in the first place before it made its place into the TV series. The whole thing of making scrap a big fear thing for steam engines was done all the way back to the Railway series when Robert Aldry wrote the books. Back in the story Tenders for Henry and Enterprise and Engines, Gordon went through the whole thing about steam being abolished in Britain and how every single one of Flying Scotsman's class except for Flying Scotsman were all scrapped and broken up. Now Aldry obviously based this on real life events since steam was being abolished in the 60s, and most steam engines were being scrapped and cut up. And he took it even further in Stepney the Bluebell engine with the very first story, where it shows some steam engines being left in a siding waiting to be cut up. Just the sadness and fear in their faces just makes it seem like it's a really bad thing to have them be scrapped. Just really makes you feel sorry for these locomotives. And that was the power of Robert Aldry's writing. He could turn something that was normal and everyday back in the 1960s when steam was abolished, and then turn it into something that's just really dark and heartbreaking for people that read it, especially if you're a lover of steam engines. This just shows what an amazing writer Robert Aldry was, taking something that was mundane in the 1960s when steam was abolished to make room for diesel engines and turning it into something personal. And I think that thanks to the TV series as well as the Railway series, it makes a lot of steam engine lovers feel really sad and sorry for steam engines when you see photographs of them being lined up waiting to be cut up. Just so many images of these old scrapyards and lines of steam engines waiting to be cut up is just heartbreaking to a steam engine lover. And this is something that the TV series today is lacking. And I know that the showrunners today would probably see this kind of thing about Scrap and Scrapyards being too dark for children to watch it today, but that was part of what made the classic series so great for us fans. It was never afraid to take dark chances. It just shows that the TV series, as well as the Railway series, was a lot more adult than people give them credit for. Taking something that wouldn't have been seen as much of a big deal back in the 1960s and turning it into something that is a big deal for steam engine lovers. All these dark tones that were in the Classics series, such as ghost trains, natural disasters, and even the theme of Scrap, is just something that I feel needs to come back to the TV series, because that's what made it more adult than people realise it. While some people may see it as too dark and scary for young kids, I personally see it as taking a risk in a children's TV show that wouldn't have been taken today. And it's just these many dark elements that makes a lot of people love the original TV series and the Railway series in the first place. Of course, we still get those happy endings that many people know the TV series and the Railway series for, but it's just some of those dark elements that tends to make the TV series and Railway series rewatchable and rereadable. And those are all the dark elements that made Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends so great during the Classic series that really should be brought back to the new series every once in a while. And this is just the dark side of Sodor that we haven't seen for a long time that needs to come back to the TV series sooner rather than later.